Keep learning. The Tom Daniel Show. Keep listening. Keep learning. The Tom Daniel Show.
You're listening to the Tom Daniel Show, and I'm your host, Tom Daniel. Today I want to tell you a story that begins in 18th century Vienna. It passes through some of the most volatile, brilliant, and occasionally unhinged musicians who ever lived. And then it somehow ends with me, a red-headed kid in Alabama who couldn't read music and thought a Dan Fogelberg song counted as piano repertoire. This is the story of my own piano ancestry. Not genetics, not bloodlines, a musical inheritance, passed hand to hand, teacher to student, for over 2 centuries. And remarkably, I can trace it back to the composer Franz Joseph Haydn. And not only that, I can trace it back to him twice. First, what is a piano ancestry? Now, musicians sometimes talk about something called a pedagogical lineage. Who taught whom and who taught them and so on. I mean, it's not mystical. It's just bragging rights. I studied with Franz Liszt. Oh, yeah? Well, I studied with a guy who taught Franz Liszt, so there. I mean, it's closer to an oral tradition with sheet music. Because music is not just notes. It's habits, it's tone, it's values, what you praise, what you tolerate, what you punish, and most importantly, what you pass on. And just as with any area of knowledge out there, simply being an expert in your field does not guarantee that you'll be a good teacher, because being a teacher is a totally different concept. Knowing how to do something is not at all the same thing as knowing how to teach someone to do something. There are plenty of unbelievable geniuses out there who make terrible teachers, and music is no different. So let's talk about Papa Haydn and the problem child. Now, everything starts with Haydn, the man his contemporaries affectionately called Papa Haydn, partly out of respect, partly because he was old, and partly because he seemed to father everyone musically. Haydn was an extremely prolific composer in the classical era, and he was a close friend of the much younger Mozart. He was also a music teacher. And one of those musical children of Haydn's was a young, surly, catastrophically difficult student named Ludwig van Beethoven. Beethoven studied with Haydn in Vienna and immediately decided 2 things. Number 1, Haydn wasn't teaching him fast enough. And number 2, rules were optional. Beethoven cheated on his assignments, y'all. He hired another teacher behind Haydn's back to correct his homework before he turned it in. He borrowed money from Haydn and didn't repay it. In other words, he behaved exactly like a genius student who knows he's smarter than everyone in the room. Eventually, Haydn discovered all of this and very quietly ended their relationship. But here's the important part. Haydn never spoke ill of Beethoven to anyone, ever. That restraint matters. Haydn may not have been a great teacher, but he was totally a cool dude. And next, Beethoven as a teacher. Proceed at your own risk. Now, you know Beethoven as a composer. He was going deaf, he was angry and depressed about it, and now imagine that same Beethoven as your teacher? Good grief. He bit his students. He slammed keyboard covers down on their fingers. He taught for hours without stopping, when he remembered to show up, or not at all when he forgot to show up. He showed up at students' houses, sometimes wearing a silk coat, a top hat, and other times in his bathrobe. And yet, he taught them. He also generously opened doors for them. He promoted talent. He very graciously used his celebrity to lift the careers of his students. Now, his greatest student was Carl Czerny, a name that you probably don't know. Carl Czerny absorbed something very crucial from Beethoven, and that was technique is not optional. Carl Czerny is where everything splits in my ancestry. He's the hinge point. He was also the father of piano teaching technique. Before Czerny, every music teacher basically just made it up as they were going. Czerny organized and structured rudimentary piano teaching method. He systemized piano teaching. He professionalized it. He created the modern idea of piano method. And out of his hundreds, perhaps even thousands of music students, 2 of them went in completely different directions. Franz Liszt and Theodor Leschetizky. Liszt was total fire, spectacle, transcendence, and Leschetizky was discipline, control, and tone. And this is where my lineage splits. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show. We'll be right back.
The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show.
Welcome back to the Tom Daniels Show, and a big ol' hearty thanks is due to Mary Mac for that piano-themed rendition of our show's song. Mary Mac is the world's most perfect band. Now, we've been talking about my piano and musical lineage, and from Carl Czerny, my lineage splits into 2 paths. On the Liszt side, we've got genius without a net. Franz Liszt was the first rock star. He was the first to turn the piano sideways on stage so that the audience could not only see his hands, they could also see his gorgeous face at the same time. He would wink at the ladies in the audience, and of course they would scream and faint. He memorized all of his music, no sheet music on stage ever for Liszt. He played better than other composers played their own music, which created a legend that he'd sold his soul to the devil for the ability to tear up a piano like that. And when I say tear up a piano, I mean that. He literally broke pianos on stage. They had to have spare pianos backstage, ready to roll out and replace the ones he'd broken. You didn't go to a Liszt concert to hear the music. You went to see the man put on a show. And he did. So Liszt didn't teach his students how to play. He taught them how to be burned alive by the music. Liszt didn't even charge a fee for piano lessons, which didn't go over really well with the other teachers in the area. Why would somebody pay this guy when they could take lessons from the great Franz Liszt for free? However, he also believed strongly in public humiliation as a teaching tool, which didn't go over very well with his students. Now, for Liszt, shame was very motivating. And one of his most important students was Arthur Friedheim, who reacted by swinging hard in the totally opposite direction. Friedheim emphasized technique, structure, control, and that line eventually lands in Alabama with a man named Hubert Liverman, the man who handed me a Bach book and quietly began repairing the damage I didn't yet know I'd done to my own technique. Now, on the Leschetizky side, teaching the teachers. Theodor Leschetizky was building an empire of pedagogy in Europe. He taught thousands of students in a 75-year teaching career. Now, one of his assistants, Edwin Hughes, brought that tradition to America. Edwin Hughes taught a man named Harry Watts, who believed piano wasn't just for prodigies, it was for the people. Harry Watts was one of the American pioneers of teaching piano class, where you have several people in the room at the same time taking piano together. And Harry Watts taught a terrifying, brilliant man who became an Auburn professor named William Tamblyn. and now the reconvergence. Dr. Tamblyn studied both lineages. He studied with Hubert Liverman, and he also studied with Harry Watts. He learned Liszt's fire, and he learned Leschetizky's discipline. And he passed both of those to me, sometimes gently and sometimes not. When I was a student, when I was one of his piano students, I had a bad habit of staring at my hands when I played instead of looking at the sheet music, which is where I was supposed to be looking, even though I vehemently denied it. Dr. Tamblyn sidled up behind me during one lesson and suddenly thrust a long piece of cardboard in the space over my hands, blocking my view, and my playing fell apart instantly. I couldn't see my hands. Busted. It was painfully obvious that I was absolutely staring at my hands instead of the sheet music, and he improved my playing dramatically with that brutal gesture. Now, during another lesson, my nose started running, and I stopped the music to wipe my nose with a Kleenex. I mean, who wouldn't do that? Dr. Tamblyn exploded out of his chair. He said, "I don't care if you drip snot all over those keys. Don't you ever stop playing music in the middle." That humiliating little lesson has saved me more times than I can count. But this isn't about me. This story is not about me. It's not about music horror stories. It's not even about pedigree. It's really about continuity. You see, Haydn never knew that Beethoven was going to become Beethoven. And Beethoven never knew that Carl Czerny would teach basically half of Europe. Liszt never charged tuition. Dr. Tamblyn never knew where his influence would land. And I don't know where mine's going to go. But I do know this. My name now sits under his on that lineage. And all of my students' names now sit under mine. That's the handshake. Not everyone can claim this lineage back through Beethoven and Haydn, but every one of my students can. Music doesn't survive because it's written down. It survives because it's handed forward, teacher to student, mind to mind, ear to ear, sometimes gently, sometimes brutally, but always human. And whatever you do, don't you dare stop playing music in the middle. This has been the Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening. Keep learning.
Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Take a break from your usual routine and tune into the Tom Daniels Show. You'll discover the world of melodies and stories that you might not know. Keep listening.